With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and Naughty Dog is probably one of the best video game developers working today, if not of all time. They've been around for over 2 decades, but it was really, in my opinion, 2007's release of Uncharted Drake's Fortune, which put them on the map in terms of action adventure, and that was very much solidified with the 2013 release of The Last of Us, which, if you haven't played that, there's no better reason to get a PlayStation 3 or a PlayStation 4. The game is, like, you can argue, the swan song for the PlayStation 3, but the remastered edition that was released a little over a year later in 2014 for the PS4 is wonderful. It's great, and it's completely worth your time and investment, especially leading into the release of The Last of Us Part 2 coming this year, I hope. But that being said, Sony knows that there are a lot of great things about Naughty Dog and their properties, which is why they're trying to turn them into movies. Video game adaptations, at least feature film-wise, not necessarily the best track record. I'm still holding out hope that Tomb Raider next month is actually good. I'm very much hoping that it's good. But right now, what you've got is Neil Druckmann chiming in on the Uncharted movie and the Last of Us movie adaptations. Now, when the Last of Us movie was announced, the adaptation was announced, it was actually at Comic-Con 2014 at the Screen Gems panel. I was there. I had no idea that they were going to be talking about the movie. I had no idea that Sam Raimi was going to be producing, and I had no idea that Neil Druckmann was going to be adapting the screenplay. But since then, it's kind of gone into production limbo. And same with the Uncharted movies. The Uncharted movies were originally, maybe not originally slated to be directed by David O. Russell, but when he came on the scene, he wanted to put Mark Wahlberg in the role of Nathan Drake, whereas fans were like, Nathan Fillion is probably a better actor to play the role. Or if you're kind of a diehard like me, you're thinking, why not just put Nolan North? Just make it Nolan North. He did all the voice work in mocap anyway. He is the embodiment of Nathan Drake. But that being said, it's gone through multiple stars, multiple directors. Now we have Tom Holland of Spider-Man on board to star in a new series of films, probably like leading into Uncharted. And I do feel that a lot of it has to do with the success of Spider-Man and them going to Tom Holland, like, is there any project you want to do? And him going, I want to play Nathan Drake. But anyway, Neil Druckmann, who wrote The Last of Us Part 2, as well as Uncharted 4, is a person who's going to be very heavily involved with these, at least the scripts part of this, I believe. And he's giving an update on what to expect out of both of these franchises. Now, it says here that while work on movie adaptations of Naughty Dog's Uncharted and The Last of Us video games continues, the thinking about what they should be has evolved with time. And this is probably reflective of the fact that there's been very little movement on these properties. Fans have wanted these films for years, right? They've wanted adaptations for years, and Sony hasn't really done it. But to Sony's credit, they haven't been in the best place to produce something like this, and I don't even know if they're there right now. But at least they kind of recognize that a lot of work needs to be done. Now, Neil Druckmann here says, we used to just be excited. Oh my God, movies are looking at us. But then as more time passes on, we're not excited about a direct adaptation because we've already told that story very well cinematically. And Neil Druckmann, by the way, is the creative lead at Naughty Dog, and he told this to Dan Trachtenberg, who was a director of 10 Cloverfield Lane, which, again, if you haven't seen that, hoo boy, it's good. Now, Druckmann, who worked on the Last of Us movie script, says he looked back at that now and doesn't want that movie to be made. For both The Last of Us and Uncharted, Druckmann also says it would be odd to retell the story already delivered in games because the actors for the main characters would be recast. This really isn't, I mean, as much as I would like to see Nolan North play Nathan Drake or Troy Baker play Joel or Ashley Johnson play Ellie, I understand that that's not going to happen. I understand that that's not going to be the case, right? Alicia Vikander playing Lara Croft is playing Lara Croft. She's playing a character. Angelina Jolie was playing the character back in 2001, I believe 2003, respectively. So I don't look at those adaptations and go, oh well, I wish it would have had the polygon, torpedo boobs like from the game from the 1990s or the same voice actress. I understand, though, the dedication to the characters and to the talent behind the characters that Druckmann has, and I completely agree. But at the same time, I don't think fans are going to, burn their copies of The Last of Us over this particular thing. Now he says, for me and a lot of our fans, Nolan North is Nathan Drake, Ashley Johnson as Ellie, Troy Baker as Joel. It would be very disorienting to see someone else in that role. Druckmann likened it to someone deciding they wanted to turn Breaking Bad into a movie and then cast someone else as Walter White. Well, to be fair, Columbia did actually have a version of this, of Breaking Bad, that they adapted, and Bryan Cranston did not play Walter White. So both Druckmann and Trachtenberg seem to settle on the approach used by the TV adaptation of Fargo as the right way to go. They said that introducing new characters into the fabric of that world, then capturing the tone and expanding on the stories is what makes the stories work so well, which is arguably true. The Coen brothers' 1996 film Fargo is brutal, it's violent, it's fantastic. The TV show is brutal, it's violent, it's fantastic, and they are not the same. And I was a little concerned, how are they going to do that when Fargo was first announced, but I've been pleasantly surprised with how things played out, and I think that they've done a good job. So I completely understand that idea, but what I'm getting out of this essentially is that we don't need an Uncharted movie. We need an Uncharted show. We don't need a Last of Us movie. We need a Last of Us show. And that is where I think they would probably find more success. Right now, we are definitely in the golden age of television. Jeff Daniels likens this to the fact that TV just has better writers, which is abundantly true. And there are more people that want to binge watch television, and they like to talk about television. And it's at this point where the shows that are coming out are usurping films in how they are being portrayed. And a lot of that is also likened, I think, to video games, at least single-player stories, where single-player stories take place over the span of, in some cases, 6 to 10 hours. In other cases, is a lot longer than that. And it all depends on how the player is going about it, the long, expanded experience. I think when telling these kind of tales, that's one of the reasons why these kind of shows or these kind of properties would work better as a long-form adaptation. Like The Dark Tower, for example, should not have been a 2-hour-long movie. It doesn't make sense to adapt that particular property to something that is that cut short for runtime. The same with Justice League. Ordering a 2-hour cut of Justice League, an adaptation that's meant to be the culmination of the 4-year buildup into the DCEU, was not the right way to go about it. And I think fans realize that. Whereas if Justice League was brought on as a mini-series, very similar to, let's say, Stephen King's The Stand adaptation from the 1990s, the 8-hour miniseries that is so very well regarded for handling the source material with, you could say, respect. I would argue they just, they really expanded it out, and ABC gave them the damn budget for it. And that's where we are right now. But it does finish up here by saying that Druckmann says he's had conversations with Sean Levy, the director of Stranger Things, about the Uncharted movie, saying he's really passionate. He gets it. I think he understands where we're at. The conversations we've had with Sean, him wanting to tell a story with a potentially young Nathan Drake that fills in some gaps of his life, is way more interesting. And that is kind of where Tom Holland would chime in on this, or would come into play. Tom Holland would come into play simply because it would be a younger Nathan Drake, something like along the lines of the opening of Uncharted 3, where you get him meeting Sully and maybe going on their first adventure, and then from there the series would progress, perhaps moving over to a straight adaptation of Drake's Fortune, which would be cool. Or if it was up to me, I would totally adapt Among Thieves, Uncharted 2, a lot of great stuff there, but those would be very big, expensive shows to make, and that may not be where Sony's at right now. But at the same time, going back to my previous point, Sony should look at the adaptation of Lord of the Rings, and not Lord of the Rings, well, that maybe even that too for Amazon, but looking at the adaptation of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has, 10 episodes at $60 million budget, about $6 million an episode. They shoot in 9 different countries, and the thing is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not hard to capture that again if the tone is right, the setting is right, and the characters are right, which is why TV at this point is the better medium for a product like this rather than movies. As much as I will be there day one, butt in seat to see either one of these adaptations, I'd prefer it if it was on TV. That being said, I do want to turn it over to you guys. What do you guys think about this? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, and I am going to be giving away a copy of Justice League on Blu-ray when the film comes out. So if you guys want to get in on that, you got to be sure to comment below, as well as make sure you're subbed to the channel. And I'll be giving that when the movie comes out here in the next week or so. So keep an eye out on that. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. If you want to watch more from me, by the way, you can do so right now.